The horrifying reality of serving Nurgle is not what I expected when I first felt his touch. I remember when flesh was something to be protected, when we were taught that our bodies were gifts from the Emperor himself. Now I wade through soil that pulses and breathes, tending gardens where corpse flowers feed on memories extracted from the dying. My armor has softened, turned porous. It breathes with me, sweats with me, rots with me. The garden stretches before me, forests of giant toadstools releasing clouds of spores that dance like golden motes in green-tinged light. I once believed the Great Father's gift was freedom from pain, an escape from death through resilience. But as I extract the progenoid glands from our fallen with hands that can no longer feel, I wonder what if this eternity of rot and bliss is not liberation, but the cruelest prison of all. The memory surfaces like a bubble in a swamp, rising slowly through layers of time and rot until it breaks upon the surface of my consciousness with a gentle pop. That bubble held a fragment of who I was. An apothecary, a healer, a guardian of gene seed, a man who once stood proud in white armor trimmed with green. How foolish that pride seems now as I wade through the garden, my feet sinking ankle deep into soil that pulses and breathes. The first signs came after Istvan. Not the cough that plagued so many of my brothers, but something subtler, a numbness in my fingertips as I worked to extract the progenoid glands from our fallen. I blamed it on exhaustion, on the toxic atmosphere of that blood-soaked world. I still believed I served the Emperor then, still believed in the purity of purpose that had been instilled in me since my initiation as an Astartes of the Death Guard. I remember standing over a brother whose skin had turned the color of spoiled milk, inserting my narthecium with hands that could no longer feel the delicate instruments I wielded. The gene seed must be preserved, I told him as he breaded, died. He smiled at me through split lips, his teeth visible through the holes that had opened in his cheeks. "There are other seeds being planted, Brother Malchus," he whispered. I did not understand then. I could not comprehend what blossomed within us all. The Great Father had already marked us, chosen us, loved us. We who sought to escape death through resilience were being offered a greater gift, a truer form of immortality than even the Emperor had promised. Not the cold, sterile immortality of duty and sacrifice, but the warm, moist eternity of rot and rebirth. The garden stretches before me now, a landscape of impossible contradictions. Forests of giant toadstools release clouds of spores that dance like golden motes in the green-tinged light. Lakes of bubbling filth give birth to laughing nurglings that splash and play before burrowing into the bloated corpses that float upon the surface. In the distance, a mountain of flesh rises, its slopes dotted with pustules that weep glowing ichor. And everywhere, the buzzing of flies forms a constant, soothing choir that whispers of the Great Father's love. I cannot recall how long I have tended this particular patch of the garden. Time has no meaning here. The chronometers in my armor failed long ago, their mechanisms clogged with the same fluids that now course through the tubes and pipes that were once part of my life support systems. Now they carry different gifts, different nutrients. My armor and I have become one, not in the way the tech priests of Mars once taught, but in a truer, more intimate communion. The ceramite has softened, turned porous, it breathes with me, sweats with me, rots with me. My assigned plot grows corpse flowers, their petals the color of bruised flesh, their stamens crowned with tiny skulls that gnash microscopic teeth. They feed on the memories I offer them, memories extracted from the dead and dying that occasionally wash up on the shores of the lake of filth that borders my domain. Imperial guardsmen, Eldar rangers, orc boys, even the occasional space marine from chapters I once called brother or foe. All are welcome in the garden, all contribute to its growth. Today, I find a new arrival half submerged in the muck. A space marine, his silver armor blackened with burns and punctured in a dozen places, an iron hand. I kneel beside him and see that he still lives, though barely. His enhanced physiology struggles against the cocktail of diseases that have already begun to claim him. His augmetic left eye sparks and whirs as it tries to focus on my face. "Traitor!" he spits, though the word bubbles through the blood that fills his mouth. I smile, feeling the stretched skin of my face crack like old leather. There is no betrayal in the garden, brother, only acceptance. I place my hand, swollen and green with rot, upon his chest. Through the shattered ceramite, I can feel his twin hearts laboring, such strength, such determination. The Great Father values these qualities. They make the eventual surrender all the sweeter. I bring you a gift, I tell him, unscrewing a vial from my belt. The glass has long since dissolved, replaced by a translucent membrane that pulses slightly as the liquid within shifts and changes color. It will ease your pain. I embrace pain. The iron hand growls. It is the forge upon which my will is tempered. I nod, appreciating his devotion even as I pity his ignorance. Pain is indeed a teacher. I agree. But it is a limited one. It can only teach you to endure. The Great Father teaches us to transcend. I pour the contents of the vial into the wound in his chest. The liquid, thick and yellow as pus, seems to move with purpose, seeking out the damaged organs within. The iron hand gasps, his back arching as the gift takes hold. His remaining human eye widens, then relaxes as understanding blooms within him. "What is this?" he whispers, wonder replacing hatred in his voice. "The first blessing," I tell him, "the removal of fear, the acceptance of what all men know but refuse to embrace. That death is not an end to be fought, but a transition to be welcomed." He stares at me, and I see the reflection of myself in his augmetic eye. My face is barely recognizable as human. My skin has the green-brown coloration of advanced necrosis, pulled tight over a skull that has grown and distorted. Horns of bone protrude from my temples, curving back along my head like a crown. My eyes have sunk deep into their sockets, glowing with a pale yellow light. My mouth, now lipless, reveals teeth that have fused into ridged plates better suited for grinding vegetation than tearing meat. And yet, there is no revulsion in the Iron Hand's expression, only curiosity, only dawning acceptance. "The pain," he murmurs, "it's changing." "Yes," I nod. "It is becoming something else, something more honest. Pain is merely the denial of death, brother. Accept death, embrace decay, and pain transforms into its true nature." "Which is?" His voice grows faint as the gift spreads through his system. "Pleasure," I whisper, leaning close so that my fetid breath washes over his face. "The pleasure of surrender, the joy of acceptance, the bliss of knowing your place in the great cycle." A tremor runs through the Iron Hand's body. A sound escapes him, half groan, half laugh. His armor, already compromised, begins to change. The metal softens, takes on a greenish hue. Tiny mushroom caps sprout from the joints and seams. His flesh and his wargear entering communion with each other and with the garden soil upon which he lies. "What is happening to me?" he asks, but there is no fear in the question, only wonder. "You are being remade," I tell him. "As I was remade, as all who enter the garden are remade. The Great Father sees the potential in you, the strength that can be turned to his purpose. You will serve him as you once served your emperor, but with greater joy, greater purpose." "The emperor," the Iron Hand murmurs. "The emperor protects." "The emperor promises only war without end," I correct him gently. "Only duty and sacrifice and pain. The Great Father offers acceptance, peace, a place in the eternal cycle of decay and rebirth." The Iron Hand's eyes close, but his lips curve in a smile. "I feel them," he whispers, "moving inside me, so many of them. So hungry, so happy." I nod, pleased by his quick acceptance. Some struggle longer against the inevitable. "They are the Great Father's children," I explain, "and they will be your companions in the transformation. Listen to them, learn from them. They have much to teach you about the true nature of existence." I rise then, leaving the Iron Hand to his communion. He will find his own way now, guided by the gifts already blossoming within him. Perhaps he will become a tiller of the soil as I am, or perhaps the Great Father has other plans for his particular talents. It matters not. All serve in their way, all contribute to the garden's growth. I return to my corpse flowers, which have grown impatient in my absence. They sway on their stems, the tiny skulls that crown them chattering in hungry anticipation. I reach into the pouch at my waist, now an actual organ that has grown from my abdomen, and withdraw a handful of memories. They look like small, milky pearls, each containing a fragment of life extracted from those who have passed through my domain. With gentle care, I press these pearls into the waiting mouths of my flowers. They accept my offering with delicate nibbling motions. As they feed, they excrete a thick, fragrant nectar that I collect in the chalice that was once my narthecium. This nectar is precious, a distillation of experience and emotion that the Great Father values highly. It will be added to his cauldron, contributing flavors and textures to the ever-evolving plague that is his greatest work. The work satisfies me in a way that my duties as an apothecary never did. Then, I fought against death, seeing it as failure, as defeat. Now I understand it as essential, as sacred. The dead feed the garden feeds the dead. The cycle is perfect, unending, beautiful in its simplicity. And yet, there are moments, brief and fleeting as the soap bubbles that form and pop on the surface of the lake of filth, when I question, not the Great Father's love, for that is constant and undeniable, not the rightness of my place here, for I have never felt more at home, but rather, I question the memory of who I was, the apothecary who sought to heal, to preserve, to protect. Was there value in that struggle against the inevitable? Was there purpose in the denial of decay? These thoughts trouble me, like an itch beneath armor that has fused with my skin. Unreachable, irritating, persistent. I should not have such doubts. I should not remember the time before with anything but scorn. And yet, the memories surface, unbidden and unwelcome. I remember a battlefield. Not Istvan, but some nameless world where we fought against warriors in blue armor, ultramarines. So proud, so certain of their superiority, I had dragged a wounded brother to shelter behind a fallen pillar, ancient stone carved with symbols that meant nothing to me. My brother's leg had been severed at the knee by a power sword, the wound cauterized by the same stroke that maimed him. "Leave me," he had insisted. "I can still fire my bolter. I can still kill the enemy." "You are more valuable than that," I told him, preparing a stim injection that would keep him conscious and fighting despite the shock of his injury. The gene seed must be preserved. He had laughed then, a sound harsh with pain and bitter amusement. "Always the gene seed with you, Malchus, as if that's all we are. Carriers. Vessels." I had not replied, focused on my work, on the familiar rituals of wound assessment and treatment, but his words had struck something within me, some chord that resonated with doubts I did not know I harbored. Are we just vessels? I had wondered then. Vessels for gene seed, for the Emperor's will, for the Primarch's ambition? Now I know the answer. We are vessels indeed, but for something far greater, far more honest than the cold purpose the Emperor designed us for. We are vessels for life in all its glorious, messy abundance. We are gardens in which 1,000,000 species flourish. We are worlds unto ourselves, ecosystems of interdependent organisms all working in perfect harmony. The Iron Hand's transformation has progressed rapidly. Already he sits up, examining his changing body with fascination rather than horror. The augmetics that once defined his chapter's identity are being subsumed, repurposed. Metal and flesh find new communion in rot. His silver arm, more machine than man, now sprouts tendrils of fungal growth that probe and explore the mechanisms within, finding new uses for gears and pistons designed for war. "Brother Malchus," he calls to me, his voice thick with phlegm. "I understand now, the Omnissiah, the machine god we venerated. It was always this, the perfect fusion of biology and technology, not in sterile purity, but in glorious corruption." I smile, pleased by his insight. The Great Father reveals truth to all who enter his garden. I confirm, each according to their nature, their past, their potential. The iron hand rises unsteadily to his feet, fluids dripping from joints that have become host to colonies of bacteria that digest metal and excrete compounds previously unknown to Imperial science. "What is my purpose here?" he asks. "How do I serve?" I gesture to the vast garden that surrounds us. "Find your place," I tell him. "The garden will guide you. Listen to the voices of those who now share your flesh. They know the Great Father's will better than any priest or prophet." He nods, understanding immediately. The gift of intuitive knowledge comes with acceptance. He turns and walks away, moving deeper into the garden, drawn to whatever task awaits him. I watch him go with a sense of satisfaction. Another brother welcomed into the fold, another vessel filled with the Great Father's blessings. I return to my work, to the tending of my plot and the harvesting of nectar. The corpse flowers have finished their meal and now enter a brief dormancy, their petals folding inward, their stems curling into tight spirals. Soon they will bloom again, larger and more vibrant than before, nourished by the memories they have consumed. While I wait, I walk the perimeter of my domain, checking for incursions or anomalies. The garden is peaceful, but not static. It changes constantly, responding to the Great Father's whims and to the influx of new material from real space. Occasionally, warriors of the Imperium or other powers manage to breach the barriers between dimensions and launch attacks upon the garden. These are dealt with swiftly, the invaders overwhelmed not by military force but by the garden itself, by the very air they breathe and the ground upon which they tread. At the edge of the lake of filth, I find something unusual. A small object half buried in the muck, its surface gleaming with an unnatural cleanliness that stands out starkly against the prevailing decay. I reach down and lift it, curious. It is a medallion, a simple circle of some silvery metal that resists the corruption that should be overtaking it. Etched upon its surface is a symbol I recognize from my past life. The prime helix, the emblem of the apothecary. I stare at it, feeling that itch again, that unwelcome doubt. The medallion was mine once, worn beneath my armor as a reminder of my oaths. Oaths to preserve life, to honor the gene seed, to serve the Legion and through it, the Emperor. Oaths I have broken. Oaths I have transcended. I should cast it back into the lake. I should watch it sink beneath the surface of that bubbling cesspool, watch as even its resistant metal is eventually claimed by the Great Father's blessing. Instead, I close my fist around it, feeling its edges press into the soft flesh of my palm. "A keepsake, Brother Malchus?" a voice inquires, wet and gurgling like a drain choked with organic matter. I turn to find a plague marine standing at the edge of my plot. His armor, once the same proud green as my own, has darkened to the color of a week-old bruise. His helmet is gone, revealing a face that has collapsed inward, the skull seemingly dissolved, leaving a cavity filled with writhing shapes that occasionally peek out through the holes where his eyes and mouth should be. Festagog. I greet him, recognizing my old battle brother despite his transformation. "What brings you to my humble plot?" He gestures with a hand that has split along the fingers, each digit now a writhing tentacle tipped with a hooked claw. "The Great Father sends his regards," Festagog burbles. "He is pleased with your work, with the quality of the nectar you produce. The memories you harvest have a particular sweetness that he finds nostalgic." I should feel pride at this commendation. Instead, I feel a cold weight in my chest, as if some part of me that should have rotted away long ago has instead crystallized into something hard and unyielding. "I serve as I always have," I reply carefully, "to the best of my ability." Festagog's head tilts, a curious gesture given the fluid nature of what passes for his face. "Do you, brother? Do you truly serve as you always have?" There is danger in this conversation, I realize. Danger in the doubts that have taken root in me like one of the Great Father's blights. I force a smile, feeling the stretch and crack of my desiccated lips. "The methods change," I say. "The purpose remains. Life, death, rebirth. The cycle continues." Festagog makes a sound that might be laughter, might be the collapse of internal organs. Well said, apothecary. Well said indeed. He steps closer, the ground squelching beneath his heavy tread. The Great Father has a gift for you, a new strain, newly cultivated, with unique properties he believes will complement your particular talents. From a pouch that pulses and throbs at his waist, Festigog withdraws a small, glistening organ that resembles nothing so much as a human heart that has been turned inside out, its chambers and vessels exposed. It beats with a slow, deliberate rhythm, each pulse sending droplets of black ichor spattering onto the ground. Plant it at the center of your plot, Festigog instructs. Nourish it with the nectar you harvest. It will grow into something magnificent. I accept the gift with appropriate reverence, cradling the pulsing organ in hands that suddenly feel unworthy to touch such a direct blessing from the Great Father. What will it become? I ask. Festigog's approximation of a face shifts into what might be a smile. That depends on you, brother. On the care you provide. On the memories you feed it. On your devotion to the Great Father's work. With that, he turns and departs, moving through the garden with the ponderous grace of all plague marines. I watch him go, the heart beating steadily in my hands, the medallion still clutched in my fist. 2 objects, 2 symbols, 2 paths, the past and the future, duty and devotion, preservation and decay. I look down at the heart, studying its intricate construction, the walls and patterns formed by veins and arteries rearranged into configurations no human anatomist would recognize. It is beautiful in its way, a testament to the Great Father's creativity, his endless exploration of form and function. With careful steps, I make my way to the center of my plot, where the soil is richest, fed by the runoff from my corpse flowers and the occasional overflow from the lake of filth. I kneel and dig a shallow hole with my hands, feeling the soil squirm and shift eagerly against my fingers, sensing the imminent arrival of something new. I place the heart in the depression and watch as the soil rises up around it, embracing it, welcoming it. Within moments, it has been completely covered, though I can still see the rhythmic pulsing of the ground above it, synchronized with its beats. Already, tiny shoots emerge, pale and translucent, reaching upward with questing tendrils. My task complete, I open my other hand and look at the medallion. The prime helix seems to glow in the diffuse light of the garden, its clean lines a stark contrast to the organic chaos that surrounds me. I should discard it now. I should reject this reminder of a past that means nothing, of oaths that have been superseded by greater truths. Instead, I press it into the flesh of my palm, feeling it sink beneath my skin, becoming part of me once more. Not as an ornament, not as a symbol, but as a question. A reminder that even in the garden, even in the embrace of the Great Father's love, there are choices to be made. The corpse flowers begin to stir, their dormancy cycle complete. I return to them, ready to harvest the next batch of nectar, to continue my service to the Great Father. But as I work, I feel the medallion within my flesh, a small, hard certainty in a world of endless, mutable possibility. And for the first time since I entered the garden, I wonder if there might be another path. Not back to what I was, for that is impossible, but forward, toward something neither the Emperor nor the Great Father has envisioned, something of my own choosing. The thought is heresy, the thought is freedom, the thought is a seed, planted alongside the Great Father's gift, growing in secret, waiting to bloom. I tend to my flowers and I wait as the garden grows around me, as the cycle continues, as death feeds, life feeds death, eternal and unchanging, and yet, change is coming. I can feel it in the soil beneath my feet, in the air that fills my rotting lungs, in the medallion that pulses like a second heart within my flesh. Change is coming, and I will be its vessel. I am not the only one who tends the garden, far from it. The realm of the Great Father is vast beyond mortal comprehension, a dimension unto itself that reflects its master's boundless creativity and endless appetite for new forms of life and death. My plot is but one of millions, each with its own tender, its own purpose, its own unique contribution to the whole. Sometimes we gather, we tenders, to exchange knowledge and specimens, to share in the communion of rot that binds us all to the Great Father's will. These gatherings occur at the Great Father's whim, summoned by the tolling of bells that hang from the branches of a vast tree at the garden's center, a tree whose bark is made of compressed bone and whose leaves are the pages of ancient tomes filled with the names of every plague ever conceived. The next gathering comes soon after I plant the gift Festagog delivered. The bells ring out, their sound a damp, muffled dirge that nonetheless carries to every corner of the garden. I harvest what nectar I can from my corpse flowers, storing it in the organ pouches that have grown along my abdomen, and make my way toward the central tree. The path shifts and changes as I walk, the garden rearranging itself at the Great Father's command to facilitate our convergence. What begins as a winding trail through fields of mushrooms becomes a causeway spanning a bog of liquefied flesh, then a tunnel through the ribcage of some titanic beast whose organs still function, pumping gases and fluids through systems that should have failed eons ago. I emerge finally into a vast clearing dominated by the great tree. Its branches extend upward and outward like the spokes of a diseased wheel, each heavy with the weight of countless bells that sway and chime in a breeze I cannot feel. At its base, a ring of standing stones forms a rough circle, each stone carved not by tools but by the patient erosion of bodies pressed against their surfaces for millennia, leaving impressions of faces and limbs and organs in the porous rock. Within this circle, dozens of tenders have already gathered. Some I recognize as former battle brothers, Death Guard, who made the same journey I did from service to the Emperor to acceptance of the Great Father's embrace. Others are more exotic, creatures that might once have been human or xenos or something else entirely. Their original forms now so changed by the Great Father's gifts that their origins are mere speculation. I find a place among them, nodding to those I know, studying those I do not. Each tender brings samples of their work, their contributions to the Great Father's grand design. Some carry bubbling cauldrons of experimental concoctions, others lead shambling creations on chains of rusted metal, still others simply bring themselves, their bodies, the laboratories in which new strains and variations are cultured. At the center of the circle, directly beneath the great tree, stands a figure both familiar and utterly alien, towering over even the largest plague marine, corpulent yet oddly graceful, his bloated form housing countless infestations that exist in perfect harmony with their host. Antlers of bone and horn sprout from his head, forming a crown that mimics the branches of the tree above. His face is that of a grandfather, kind and patient, despite the maggots that writhe in his eye sockets and the gaping hole where his nose should be. Nurgle, the Great Father, the Lord of Decay, the God of life and death. His presence fills the clearing with a palpable sense of joy, of acceptance, of love so profound that it transcends the horror of his appearance. Even as my flesh crawls with the intensity of his regard, I feel embraced, cherished, understood in ways that no mortal being could comprehend. My children, he speaks, his voice the sound of bodies decomposing, of flies buzzing, of fluid bubbling in infected lungs. My precious, perfect children, show me what you have brought. Share your gifts, contribute to our great work. One by one, the tenders approach, presenting their offerings. A plague marine brings forth a chalice filled with a liquid that changes color with each passing second, cycling through hues that have no names in human language. The Great Father dips a bloated finger into the brew, tastes it, and nods with approval. "Delicious," he pronounces, "a worthy addition to my cauldron. The dreams of the dying, distilled to their essence. Well done, my son." A hunched figure that might once have been an Eldar presents a crystal sphere within which tiny humanoid shapes endlessly dissolve and reform, caught in a cycle of perpetual transformation. The Great Father holds it up to one roamy eye, observing the torment within with the fascination of a child studying an insect. "Exquisite," he chuckles. "The soul stuff of your former kin, trapped between states of being, neither alive nor dead, neither material nor spiritual. A delightful paradox. And so it continues, each gift received with genuine enthusiasm, each tender praised for their contribution, no matter how modest. The Great Father's love is democratic in its distribution, encompassing all who serve him with equal fervor. When my turn comes, I approach with reverence, my head bowed in supplication. From my organ pouches, I extract the nectar I have harvested, a thick, pearlescent fluid that catches the light in strange ways, seeming to contain galaxies of bacteria and fungi in perfect microcosm. Ah, my faithful apothecary! The Great Father greets me, his voice warm with affection. Always so precise in your work, so dedicated to the details. Let me see what memories you have cultivated this cycle. I offer the nectar with outstretched hands. The Great Father cups his massive palms beneath mine, and I let the fluid pour from my organ pouches into his waiting grasp. He brings it to his face, inhaling deeply, his expression one of blissful contemplation. "Fascinating," he murmurs. "The fear of a child separated from its mother in the final days of a dying world. The determination of a soldier who knows his cause is lost but fights on regardless. The quiet despair of a priest whose faith has crumbled to dust. Such rich emotional nutrients, such complex flavors. He consumes the nectar in a single slurping gulp, then lets out a belch that shakes the bells on the tree above. Excellent, my son. Your contributions continue to enrich our garden in unique ways." I should feel pride at his praise. Instead, I feel that cold weight again, that crystallized doubt. The medallion pulses within my flesh, a counterpoint to the rhythm of decay that pervades the garden. "Great Father," I hear myself say, the words emerging unbidden. I have been gifted a new specimen by Brother Festergog. A heart, unlike any I have seen before. Nurgle's expression shifts subtly, the perpetual good humor giving way to something more calculating, more focused. "Ah, yes," he nods. "A special project, that one. It grows well, I trust." "It grows," I confirm, though into what, I cannot yet say. The Great Father chuckles, a sound like distant thunder rolling across a battlefield strewn with corpses. "That is the beauty of my gifts, my son. They are not predetermined, they respond to their environment, to the care they receive, to the intention behind that care." He leans forward, bringing his rotting face close to mine. I can see the universe of life that thrives within his flesh, countless species evolving and devolving in the space of heartbeats. "What is your intention, apothecary? What will you nurture this gift into becoming?" The question strikes me like a physical blow. What is my intention? For so long I have simply accepted, simply served, simply existed within the cycle of the garden. But the heart, the medallion, the memories that bubble up from the depths of my consciousness, they demand something more, something I cannot yet articulate, even to myself. "I intend to honor your gift, Great Father," I reply, the safest answer I can formulate, "to nurture it as it deserves to be nurtured." Nurgle's smile widens, splitting his face almost in two, revealing rows of teeth that alternate between rotting stumps and gleaming fangs. "A diplomatic answer, my cautious son. But I see the truth writhing beneath your words, like maggots beneath the skin of a corpse. You harbor doubts. You question the path." Fear lances through me, a sensation I had thought long forgotten. To be seen so clearly, to have my innermost thoughts exposed before the Great Father and all the assembled tenders, it should mean my doom. Nurgle does not tolerate apostasy. The garden has no place for those who reject his gifts. And yet, the Great Father's smile does not falter. If anything, it grows more genuine, more affectionate. "Do not fear, my apothecary. Doubt is natural, doubt is healthy. Doubt is a form of decay, breaking down certainty to make room for new growth." He places one massive hand upon my shoulder, its weight threatening to drive me to my knees. "I would not have chosen you for this gift if I expected blind obedience. The heart requires a tender who questions, who seeks, who chooses. Relief floods through me, followed immediately by confusion. Then, the gift is a test? Everything is a test, my son. Everything is an experiment. Everything is an opportunity for growth and change and discovery. The Great Father straightens, addressing not just me but all the assembled tenders. That is what the followers of the false emperor never understood. They seek stasis, preservation, the denial of death and decay. But in that denial they reject life itself. For without death, without change, without the breaking down of the old, how can the new emerge? How can life flourish? Murmurs of agreement ripple through the gathering. The Great Father's words resonate with the fundamental truth of the garden, with the cycle that underlies all existence. And yet, the cold weight remains within me, the crystallized doubt, the question that will not be silenced. If change is essential, if transformation is the only constant, then what am I transforming into? What lies beyond the acceptance that has defined my existence in the garden? What new form awaits me if I follow this path of questioning to its conclusion? The Great Father's gaze returns to me, and I know that he reads these thoughts as easily as a mortal might read words on a page. Go, tend to your plot, nurture your gift. He instructs me. Follow where it leads you. That is all I ask of any of my children. With that, he dismisses me, turning his attention to the next tender in line. I back away, bowing low in respect, then turn and make my way out of the circle, past the standing stones with their impressed faces, back toward the path that will lead me to my plot. But as I walk, I feel the eyes of the other tenders upon me, some curious, some jealous, some suspicious. I have been singled out by the Great Father, marked for some special purpose. In the complex ecology of the garden, such distinction can be both blessing and curse. I quicken my pace, eager to return to the relative safety of my domain, to the heart that grows there, to the questions that await answers. The path shifts and changes around me, responding not to the Great Father's will this time, but to my own urgency. The garden attunes itself to the emotions of its inhabitants, a living reflection of our collective psyche. By the time I reach my plot, I am running, though from what or toward what, I cannot say. The corpse flowers sway in agitation as I pass, sensing my disturbance. The soil beneath my feet seems to pulse more rapidly, as if the heart I planted has accelerated its beating in response to my return. And indeed, when I reach the center of my plot, I find that the heart has grown exponentially in my absence. What was a small, inverted organ has become a pulsing mound of tissue the size of a space marine's torso. The pale shoots that had just emerged have developed into thick, ropey vines that spread outward in all directions, intertwining with the stems of my corpse flowers, burrowing into the soil, reaching toward the diffuse light that permeates the garden. I kneel beside this new growth, studying it with the analytical eye of an apothecary. The vines are not simply vegetative matter, I realize. They are veins and arteries writ large, carrying fluids that range from clear plasma to thick, dark blood. The mound itself pulses with multiple rhythms, as if several hearts beat within it, slightly out of sync with each other. And most strangely of all, the entire structure emits a sound, not the expected thump of heartbeats, but a whispered chorus of voices, too faint to make out words, yet carrying emotional resonance that washes over me in waves. Sorrow, joy, anger, peace, all mingled together in a symphony of feeling that bypasses my ears and resonates directly in my mind. I reach out a hand, hesitating just above the pulsing surface of the growth. The medallion within my palm throbs in time with the multiple rhythms of the heart structure, creating a counterpoint that seems both harmonious and discordant. "What are you?" I whisper. As if in response, a section of the growth splits open, a bloodless wound that peels back to reveal a cavity within. The interior glistens with moisture, lined with structures that resemble the villi of a human intestine, but far larger and more complex. At the center of this cavity floats a small crystalline object that catches and refracts the light in prismatic patterns. Without conscious decision, I find my hand moving forward, fingers extending toward this crystal. As I touch it, a jolt of sensation courses through me, not pain but remembrance. Memories cascade through my mind, not the stolen fragments I harvest from the dying, but my own experiences, long buried beneath layers of acceptance and transformation. I remember my induction into the Death Guard, the pride I felt at being chosen to serve among the most resilient of the Emperor's warriors. I remember the first time I saved a battle brother's life, my hands steady as I extracted shrapnel from his primary heart and restarted it with a controlled electrical pulse. I remember Mortarion, our Primarch, tall and grim and purposeful, exhorting us to be stronger than pain, than fear, than death itself. And I remember the betrayal, not as a grand, mythic moment, but as a slow, insidious process of rationalization and compromise, the gradual acceptance of tactics we would once have condemned as dishonorable, the subtle shifting of loyalty from the distant Emperor to the present and demanding Primarch, the whispers of new gods who would reward rather than exploit our sacrifice. I pull my hand away from the crystal, gasping as the flood of memories subsides. The cavity closes, the growth sealing itself seamlessly, returning to its pulsing, murmuring state. But something has changed. The medallion in my palm burns not with heat but with clarity, a point of absolute certainty in the mutable chaos of the garden. I rise to my feet, my mind racing. The heart is not just a new specimen, not just another of the Great Father's creations. It is a mirror, a catalyst, a key to something locked within me since my transformation. The Great Father said to follow where it leads, but did he know where that might be? Does even he understand what grows here in my plot? A rustling sound alerts me to a visitor. I turn to find one of my corpse flowers has detached from its stem and slithered toward me, moving on petal feet with surprising speed. It stops just short of my feet, its tiny skull stamen tilting upward to regard me with empty eye sockets that nonetheless convey curiosity. "Have you come for feeding?" I ask it, reaching for my pouch of harvested memories. The flower makes a chittering sound, its skull face opening to reveal not the expected maw but a small, perfectly formed human tongue. Not hunger. It lisps in a voice like dying leaves scraping across stone. "Warning." I kneel, bringing myself closer to the strange messenger. "Warning? Of what?" "Others watch," the flower whispers. "Others who do not share the Great Father's patience with doubt." My gaze snaps up, scanning the perimeter of my plot. At first, I see nothing amiss, just the usual undulating landscape of the garden stretching in all directions. But then, at the edge where my domain meets the lake of filth, I catch a glimpse of movement. A figure stands half concealed behind a writhing mass of tentacular fungi, observing my plot with unnatural stillness. Even at this distance, I recognize the bloated silhouette of a plague marine, though not one I know from my former legion. This warrior bears the marks of a different chapter's heraldry beneath the corruption that now defines him. Perhaps word-bearers or iron warriors. An outsider then, but one welcomed into the Great Father's embrace just as I was. Why would such a one spy upon me? What interest could my modest plot hold for those not of the Death Guard? The heart? The flower thing hisses, as if reading my thoughts. They sense its potential. They covet what grows within your domain. I look back at the pulsing mound, considering, if others can sense the power of this growth, then it is indeed something unusual, something valuable, something worth protecting. "Thank you for the warning, little one," I tell the flower. "Return to your sisters. Continue your work." The flower chitlers once more, then slithers away, leaving a faint trail of nectar that quickly absorbs into the eager soil. I remain kneeling, considering my options. I could confront the Watcher, drive him from the borders of my territory. I could report this intrusion to Festagog or another of my former battle brothers, seek protection through the hierarchy that persists even within the Great Father's domain. Or I could simply continue my work, pretend ignorance of the fictic, surveillance, while taking measures to protect the heart and discover its true purpose. This last option appeals most to the calculating part of me that once measured doses of combat stims and plotted the trajectories of extraction missions on hostile worlds. Decision made, I rise and return to my regular duties, harvesting nectar from the corpse flowers that have not yet achieved mobility, sorting and storing the memory pearls that will feed the next generation. All the while, I maintain an awareness of the Watcher at the perimeter, noting when he shifts position or is briefly relieved by another similarly bloated figure. They make no move to enter my territory, content for now with observation. This suggests they fear something, either retribution from the Great Father for interfering with his special project, or perhaps something about the heart itself. Either way, their caution gives me time. As the ambient light of the garden dims, signaling the onset of what passes for night in this realm, I make my preparations. From various parts of my plot, I harvest specific specimens, fungi with soporific spores, vines whose sap causes temporary blindness, flowers whose pollen induces disorientation and memory loss. These I arrange strategically around the central mound, a series of defensive rings that will not harm a determined intruder, but will significantly impede them. Then I turn my attention to the heart itself. It has continued to grow throughout the day, the vines now extending to the very edges of my territory, creating a network that pulses with fluid and information. I kneel beside the central mound once more, placing both hands upon its surface. "Show me," I whisper. "Show me what you are." The growth splits open again, the cavity revealing the floating crystal at its center. This time, I do not hesitate. I plunge my hand into the moist interior and grasp the crystal firmly. The flood of memories is even stronger than before, threatening to overwhelm my consciousness. But I am prepared now, my mind structured to channel rather than resist the flow. I see myself as I was, as I became, as I might have been. Multiple timelines, multiple possibilities. In one, I remain loyal to the Emperor, dying on Istvan at the hands of my own brothers, my gene seed forever lost. In another, I embrace Nurgle's gifts fully, becoming not just a tender of the garden but a champion of decay, a living vector for the Great Father's most virulent creations. In yet another, I find a middle path, neither loyal nor corrupt, but something new, something unprecedented. The crystal pulses in my grasp, growing warmer, more insistent. It wants something from me, some decision, some commitment. The medallion in my palm throbs in counterpoint, creating a dissonance that borders on pain. Choice. It all comes down to choice. Not fate, not destiny, not even the will of gods, but the simple, terrible freedom of choice. "What do you want from me?" I ask the crystal, my voice echoing strangely within the cavity. Images flood my mind in response, a battlefield strewn with the dead and dying of all species, all factions, a laboratory where twisted parodies of Astartes gestate in fluid-filled tanks, a throne room where a withered corpse sits forgotten, its psychic light dimmed to near extinction. A garden where nothing grows but a single, perfect rose, blood-red and eternal. Symbols, metaphors, possibilities. The crystal offers not answers but questions, not direction but potential. It is a tool, I realize, not an oracle, a means of focusing and amplifying my own will, my own intention. And suddenly I understand what the Great Father meant. He did not give me this heart as a test of loyalty or as a reward for service. He gave it to me as an instrument of change, because even gods can grow stagnant in their patterns. Even the Lord of Decay can become predictably cyclical, even eternity can become boring. I am to be the variable in his great experiment, the unforeseen element, the catalyst for something new. With this realization comes another, more personal epiphany. The doubts I have harbored are not weaknesses to be overcome or flaws to be purged. They are essential to my purpose. The Great Father chose me precisely because I question, because I remember, because I have not fully surrendered my identity to the cycle of decay and rebirth. The crystal pulses one final time in my grasp, then begins to change, its crystalline structure flowing like wax, conforming to the shape of my hand. It melds with my flesh, not painfully but with a sensation of rightness, of completion. The medallion in my palm rises through layers of rotted tissue to meet it, the two objects fusing into something new, something that is neither imperial nor chaotic, neither material nor warp-born. As they join, a shockwave of energy pulses outward from my body, rippling through the entire plot. The corpse flowers sway and bend as if in a strong wind. The vines extending from the heart mound writhe and twist. The soil itself seems to heave and settle. I pull my hand from the cavity, staring in wonder at what now adorns my palm. The medallion and crystal have become a living emblem, part organic, part mechanical, part psychic construct. It resembles the prime helix of the apothecary, but evolved, adapted, its double spiral now containing a third strand that weaves between and around the original two. Life, death, and something else. Something new. As I stare at this symbol, the cavity of the heart mound closes once more. But the entire structure begins to change, to evolve at accelerated speed. The pulsing mound elongates, stretching upward and outward, developing structures that resemble limbs, a torso, a head. The vines retract, drawing back into the main mass, contributing their substance to its transformation. Within minutes, what stands before me is no longer a formless growth but a humanoid figure, roughly the size and shape of an Astartes. Its surface still pulses and shifts, features forming and dissolving in endless permutation, but the basic outline remains stable. It has no face, only a smooth expanse where features should be, yet I feel its attention focused on me with laser intensity. "What are you?" I ask again, though I suspect I already know the answer. The figure raises a hand, mirroring my own gesture. From its palm sprouts a symbol identical to the one I now bear, the evolved prime helix. It cannot speak, has no mouth with which to form words, but its meaning is clear nonetheless. I am you, you are me. We are becoming something else. A sudden commotion at the perimeter of my plot draws my attention. The Watchers have abandoned subtlety, now advancing openly into my territory. 3 plague marines, none wearing the colors of the Death Guard, all bearing the signs of extensive mutation and corruption. They carry weapons, primitive but effective, axes and flails crusted with the filth of countless battles. "Apothecary," the lead one calls, his voice a wet gurgle through a throat half dissolved by acid. "The Great Father sends his regards. He regrets that your experiment must be concluded prematurely." I know a lie when I hear one. The Great Father himself told me to follow where the heart leads, to nurture it according to my own intention. These are not his messengers, but rivals. Other servants who see in my special project a threat to their own standing, their own relationship with our patron God. "The Great Father spoke to me directly," I reply, standing tall beside the newly formed figure. "At the gathering, you were there. You heard him single me out." The plague marine spits a glob of black ichor that sizzles where it lands on the soil. "The Great Father has many children, many projects, many experiments. Some succeed, some fail, some must be repurposed." They spread out, attempting to flank me and the heart construct. They move with the ponderous certainty of those who know their target cannot escape, cannot resist effectively. They do not yet realize what has grown in my garden. "I advise you to reconsider," I warn them, raising my hand to display the symbol on my palm. It pulses with inner light, casting strange shadows across the landscape. The plague marines hesitate, sensing something beyond their experience. But their caution quickly gives way to the arrogance that infects even the servants of Nurgle. They have known the Great Father's favor, have bathed in his putrid blessings. What could one rogue apothecary and his pet abomination do against warriors who have fought across 1,000 worlds? "Take them," the leader orders, raising his axe. As they charge, they trigger the defenses I prepared earlier. Spores burst in clouds around them, vines whip up from the soil to entangle their feet, pollen drifts in disorienting patterns before their eyes. They struggle through these obstacles with the determination of Astartes, slowed but not stopped. I turn to the heart construct, uncertain what aid it can provide in this conflict. It has no weapons, no obvious means of defense, but as the first Plague Marine breaks through the final ring of defenses, the construct moves with a fluid grace that belies its massive form. It does not attack in any conventional sense. It simply reaches out and touches the Plague Marine's chest. On contact, the warrior freezes, his body going rigid as if struck by a paralytic toxin. But it is not paralysis that holds him immobile. It is recognition, understanding, revelation. The construct's flesh flows outward from the point of contact, engulfing the Plague Marine in a living shroud that pulses with the same rhythms as the heart mound. For a moment, they stand locked together, a grotesque tableau of communion. Then the shroud withdraws, flowing back into the construct, leaving the Plague Marine standing unharmed but utterly changed. His mutations have not been reversed, his corruption not cleansed, but the mindless aggression has drained from his posture. The slavish devotion that drove him to attack at another's command has been replaced by something else. Awareness, agency, choice. The other two Plague Marines falter, witnessing their comrade's transformation. The leader raises his axe higher, as if to ward off the possibility of a similar fate. Sorcery, he accuses, though the word has little meaning in a realm where reality itself is malleable to the Great Father's whim. Understanding, I correct him. The gift the Great Father truly offers, beneath all the blessings of disease and decay, the understanding that even in corruption, we have choice. Even in damnation, we have agency. The transformed Plague Marine turns to face his former comrades. I remember now, he says, his voice clearer, more purposeful than the usual gurgle of the Nurgle blessed. I was Sergeant Crassus of the Imperial Fists. I fell defending a shrine world from the word-bearers. I was offered salvation in servitude. I accepted without understanding the terms. The lead attacker takes a step back, confusion and fear warring with anger on his half-melted features. The Great Father's blessing is salvation enough, he insists. His love is all we need. His love is genuine, I acknowledge. But love without choice is not love. It is consumption, absorption, the erasure of self. Even the Great Father knows this, in his way. Why else would he cultivate such variety in his garden? Why else would he allow us to retain fragments of our former selves, our former lives? The heart construct steps forward again, reaching toward the second Plague Marine. This one tries to fight, to swing his flail at the approaching figure, but the weapon passes through the construct's form as if through water, causing momentary disruption but no lasting harm. Then contact is made, the living shroud envelops, the communion occurs. When it withdraws, another transformed warrior stands beside the first. This one straightens, his spine cracking as it attempts to recall the proud posture it once held. Codicea Vornax, he introduces himself. Alpha Legion, though I served the Emperor in truth until the end. I died on Talan, poisoned by my own brothers when my loyalty was discovered. The Great Father found my soul drifting in the warp and offered me continuation. I accepted, not understanding that continuation is not the same as life. Only the leader remains now, his axe trembling in his grasp, his courage evaporating in the face of something beyond his comprehension. The Great Father will not allow this, he stammers, this defiance, this perversion of his gifts. It is not defiance, I explain, stepping forward to stand beside the heart construct. It is evolution, growth, change, the very principles the Great Father embodies. Stagnation is the province of the false emperor, remember. The denial of death, the rejection of transformation. If we truly serve the Lord of Decay, we must ourselves be willing to decay, to break down, to become something new. The leader looks from me to the construct to his transformed comrades, searching for some weakness, some flaw in the argument. Finding none, he resorts to the final refuge of the faithful. Heresy, he spits. Heresy against the god of plagues himself. I laugh then, and the sound surprises me. Not the wet, bubbling chuckle of a plague marine, but something clearer, more reminiscent of the man I was before. Heresy implies orthodoxy, I point out. Chaos, by its nature, cannot have orthodoxy. That is its strength and its weakness, its power and its vulnerability, its blessing and its curse. The heart construct extends a hand toward the final plague marine. He raises his axe to strike, but doubt has crept into his stance, into the set of his shoulders. The blow, when it comes, lacks conviction. The axe embeds itself in the construct's shoulder, causing a wound that immediately begins to close, the weapon absorbed into the transforming flesh. Then contact is made, the shroud envelops, the communion begins. But this one fights the revelation, rejects the understanding. Within the cocoon of living tissue, I can see him thrashing, struggling against the truth being offered. When the shroud withdraws, he falls to his knees, not transformed but broken, not enlightened but shattered. His mind could not reconcile what he was shown with what he believed. His identity, already fragmented by corruption, has been dealt a blow from which it cannot recover. Some are not ready. The former Imperial Fist observes. Some cannot bear to remember. I nod, understanding all too well. Memory is a burden and a gift. I agree. For too long, we have allowed the Great Father's blessings to submerge our pasts, to drown our identities in the sea of his boundless affection. But in doing so, we have become less than we were meant to be, less than he intended us to be. I kneel beside the broken plague marine, placing my hand with its living emblem against his forehead. Rest now, I tell him. Rejoin the cycle. Perhaps in your next incarnation you will be ready to carry the weight of remembrance. Under my touch, his form begins to dissolve, not in the usual manner of decay, but with strange elegance, each cell separating from its neighbors and floating away like spores on the wind. Within moments, nothing remains but his armor, empty and purposeless without a bearer. I rise and face the heart construct and the two transformed plague marines. We have little time, I tell them. The garden will have felt this disturbance. The Great Father will know what has transpired here. Will he oppose us? The former Alpha Legionnaire asks. I do not know, I admit. The Great Father's mind is not like ours. His purposes are both simpler and more complex than we can comprehend. He may see this as a betrayal or as the natural evolution of his gifts. He may destroy us or elevate us. We cannot know until we face him. And if he destroys us? The former Imperial Fist asks. I smile, feeling the stretch of atrophied muscles. Then we return to the cycle. But we return with our choices intact, with our agency affirmed. That is no small victory in a universe where gods and mortals alike are slaves to fate and circumstance. The heart construct, silent until now, produces a sound. Not speech, not laughter, but a harmonic resonance that vibrates through the soil beneath our feet, through the air around us, through our very flesh. It is communication on a level more fundamental than words, conveying intention and emotion with perfect clarity. Readiness, determination, hope. I nod in acknowledgement. Yes, I agree. It is time. Time to show the Great Father what his gift has grown into. Time to offer him a choice of his own. Together, we begin the journey toward the center of the garden, toward the great tree with its bells, toward the circle of standing stones where the Great Father holds court. The path shifts and changes around us, but not in the usual manner. Instead of reflecting the garden's chaos, it straightens, becomes more direct, more purposeful. As if the realm itself recognizes that something unprecedented is occurring and wishes to witness the outcome. As we walk, I feel the medallion crystal in my palm pulse with increasing urgency. It senses the magnitude of what we attempt, the audacity of approaching a God not in supplication but in communion, not as servants but as partners, not as vessels but as agents. The former Imperial Fist and Alpha Legionnaire flank me, their massive forms still twisted by corruption, but now bearing themselves with renewed purpose, with reclaimed identity. The heart construct leads the way, its form continuing to evolve with each step, becoming more defined, more individuated, though still fluid and mutable. And behind us, spreading outward from my plot, a wave of transformation moves through the garden. The corpse flowers uproot themselves, following in our wake. The soil writhes and shifts, forming patterns that mirror the emblem on my palm. Even the lake of filth begins to change, its surface clarifying, the corpses that float upon it rising, animated not by mindless undeath but by remembered purpose. The garden is awakening, not to destruction, not to rebellion, but to consciousness, to choice, to the third path that lies between stagnation and chaos, between preservation and decay. The path of purposeful transformation, of evolution guided by intention rather than chance or destiny. We are the catalysts, we are the spark, we are the beginning of something that even the gods have not foreseen. And as we approach the great tree, as its bells begin to toll in recognition or warning, as the ground shakes with the footsteps of daimonic guardians rushing to intercept us, I feel no fear, only certainty, only purpose, only the weight of choice freely made and fully embraced. The Great Father awaits. The conversation that will reshape the garden, perhaps reshape the warp itself, is about to begin. And I, once a simple apothecary of the Death Guard, now stand at the cusp of a transformation more profound than any I have witnessed in all my long existence. I am Malchus. I remember. I choose. I become. And the garden trembles with anticipation. The journey to the center of the garden is not without resistance. As news of our approach spreads, various denizens of Nurgle's realm move to intercept us. Not all are hostile. Many are merely curious, drawn by the novelty of our procession, by the wave of transformation that follows in our wake. They watch from the edges of the path, these blessed of the Great Father, their rotting forms swaying in rhythm with the harmonic resonance emitted by the heart construct. Some join us, falling in behind the awakening corpse flowers, their own forms beginning to change as they are touched by the wave of consciousness that emanates from our small group. Others flee, seeking the deeper recesses of the garden, where the Great Father's more traditional blessings hold sway. But some, the most devoted, the most lost in their corruption, the most surrendered to the cycle of decay and rebirth, they attack. Plague Marines, Nurglings, great unclean ones, all servants of the god of disease who cannot comprehend or cannot accept the possibility of change beyond the parameters their master has established. We do not seek conflict, but neither do we avoid it. When confronted, the heart construct reaches out, offering communion, offering understanding. Many accept, willingly or unwillingly, and are transformed. Their corruption remains, their diseases still flourish within and upon them, but now with purpose, with direction, with choice. They join our growing procession. Some reject the offering, fight against the revelation. These we leave behind, broken or dissolving, returning to the cycle but carrying within them the seed of memory that may, in time, grow into understanding. As we near the great tree, the resistance intensifies. A host of plague-bearers forms a barrier across the path, their single eyes glaring with malevolent intelligence, their rusted swords raised in defiance. They chant in unison, their voices forming a dirge that attempts to counter the harmonic resonance of the heart construct. The garden rejects, the garden expels, the cycle preserves, the Father protects. Behind them stands a greater daemon, a great unclean, one of immense proportions, its bloated form housing ecosystems of disease, its face a grandfatherly mask of concern and disappointment. Little apothecary, it calls to me, its voice the sound of bodies left to rot on a battlefield. Little doubt carrier, little question bearer, why do you disturb the garden's peace? Why do you disrupt the cycle's turn? The Great Father gave you a gift, and this is how you repay him? With rebellion? With sedition? With the corruption of his children? I step forward, the emblem on, my palm raised like a talisman. There is no rebellion here, Lord of Contagions, I reply. Only growth, only evolution, only the natural consequence of the Great Father's gift, nurtured according to my nature, according to my choice. The greater daemon's face shifts, concern giving way to calculation. Choice, it echoes. Always this fixation on choice, as if choice were anything but an illusion. A comfort blanket for mortals who cannot accept their insignificance in the face of cosmic forces beyond their comprehension. If choice is an illusion, I counter, then why does the Great Father offer alternatives? Why corruption and not oblivion? Why service and not consumption? Why gifts that transform rather than simply destroy? The very existence of chaos implies choice, Lord of Contagions. Without it, there is only order, only stagnation, only death without rebirth. The greater daemon shifts its massive bulk, uncomfortable with the direction of the argument. It is a being of the warp, formed from the psychic emanations of mortal minds. Philosophy is not its natural domain. Action is. Enough debate, it growls. The garden rejects you, apothecary. Return to your plot and dismantle this abomination you have nurtured, or face the consequences of the Great Father's disappointment. I look past the greater daemon to the great tree beyond, its bells still tolling, summoning more and more of the garden's denizens to witness this confrontation. The Great Father himself is not yet present, but his attention is surely upon us. This daemon, powerful though it is, speaks not with Nurgle's voice but with its own interpretation of his will. We will pass, I state simply. We will present ourselves to the Great Father directly. Let him judge whether what grows here is abomination or evolution. The greater daemon roars, a sound that carries all the misery of plague victims across 10,000 years. You will not, plague bearers, eliminate these aberrations. The host of lesser daemons surges forward, their rusted swords raised high, their leprous bodies forming a wall of putrid flesh. But they hesitate as the heart construct steps forward, its harmonic resonance intensifying, shaking the very fabric of the garden around us. The construct reaches out, not to touch but to encompass, its form suddenly expanding outward in all directions, becoming a wave of transformative energy that washes over the advancing plague bearers. They wail as it touches them, not in pain but in shock, in recognition, in revelation. When the wave recedes, the plague bearers stand changed. Their forms are still diseased, still corrupt, but their posture has shifted. The mindless slouch of the eternally burdened has been replaced by something more intentional, more aware. Their single eyes blink as if seeing the garden for the first time. What have you done to them? The greater daemon demands, its voice tinged with something approaching fear. Reminded them, I answer, of what they were, of what they might become, of the choice that lies before all who serve the Great Father, whether they know it or not. The transformed plague bearers turn as one to face the greater daemon. They do not attack, do not threaten. They simply stand, a barrier of awakened consciousness between our procession and their former master. The Lord of Contagions hesitates, uncertain how to proceed against what was moments ago its unquestioning servants. It raises a massive rusted cleaver, as if to strike them down, but pauses as the implications of such an action ripple through its warp-born consciousness. To destroy these awakened servants would be to admit fear of their transformation. To admit fear would be to acknowledge the validity of what they have become. To acknowledge that validity would be to question the very nature of existence within the garden, and such questions are dangerous indeed for beings who derive their identity from unquestioning service. In that moment of hesitation, the heart construct acts. It flows forward through the ranks of transformed plague bearers, reforming before the greater daemon in all its evolving glory. Now it stands nearly as tall as the daemon itself, its form more defined than ever, features beginning to solidify on its previously blank face. Those features are not human, not Astartes, not even recognizably mortal. They shift and flow, capturing aspects of everything that exists within the garden. In one moment, I see the grandfatherly visage of Nurgle himself reflected there. In the next, my own face as it was before corruption claimed me. Then the faces of 1,000,000 plague victims, a kaleidoscope of suffering and acceptance, of resistance and surrender. The heart construct reaches out once more, its massive hand extending toward the greater daemon's bloated chest. The Lord of Contagions roars defiance and swings its cleaver in a mighty arc. The blade connects, passing through the construct's shoulder and emerging from its back in a spray of multicolored fluids. But the wound seals instantly, the blade trapped within the construct's form. And still its hand extends, inexorable, unstoppable. Contact is made. The greater daemon howls, not in pain but in revelation, as the transformative energy flows into it, through it, around it. The communion lasts longer than any previous one. The construct and the daemon lock together in a tableau of transformation that stretches from seconds to minutes. The garden around us grows still, as if holding its breath. The bells of the great tree fall silent. The only sound is the harmonic resonance that flows between the two massive figures, rising and falling in complex patterns that seem to carry meaning beyond the capability of language to express. When at last they separate, the greater daemon stands changed, not diminished, not reduced, but clarified. Its form is still massive, still bloated with disease and corruption, but now it carries itself with a dignity that transcends its rotting flesh. Its eyes, once clouded with mindless malice, now shine with awareness, with memory, with choice. I remember, it speaks, its voice no longer the sound of rotting corpses, but something deeper, more resonant, carrying echoes of what it was before becoming a daemon of Nurgle. I was Magos Biologus Septimus Drach of the Adeptus Mechanicus. I sought to understand and control the diseases that plagued humanity. In my pride, I believed I could master Nurgle's domain through science, through knowledge. I was wrong. The transformed daemon looks down at its massive hands, at the writhing diseases that still infest every inch of its form. The Great Father found me when my experiments failed catastrophically, when the plagues I sought to control escaped and consumed all life on my forge world. He offered me understanding beyond knowledge, communion beyond control. I accepted and was remade as a Lord of Contagions, a vector for the very diseases I once fought against. It raises its gaze to meet mine, recognition and something like respect in its roamy eyes. But in accepting his gift, I lost myself. I forgot the purpose that drove me to study disease in the first place. Not to spread suffering, but to understand life in all its resilience and adaptability. Not to glorify decay for its own sake, but to recognize it as part of a larger process. The transformed daemon turns, facing the direction we had been traveling. The Great Father awaits, it announces. He has felt the changes rippling through his garden. He is curious. Curious? Curious? I ask. Not angry, not threatened? The former Lord of Contagions makes a sound that might be laughter. The Great Father is beyond such simple emotions. He is decay and rebirth personified. Change is his domain as surely as it is Tzeentch's, though he expresses it differently. The Great Father does not fear transformation. He embodies it. With the greater daemon now at the vanguard of our procession, the remaining resistance melts away. The denizens of the garden part before us, some fleeing, some watching with wary curiosity, some joining the growing wave of consciousness that flows in our wake. By the time we reach the circle of standing stones that surrounds the great tree, our small group has become an army of the awakened. The clearing is empty when we arrive, the stone circle standing silent sentinel around the massive trunk of the tree. Its branches extend upward and outward like the skeleton of some vast cosmic being, the countless bells hanging from them now still and quiet. The air feels charged, expectant, as if the garden itself awaits what comes next. We do not have to wait long. A ripple passes through reality, a distortion that makes my enhanced vision blur and refocus. Then he is there, seated upon a throne of compressed bone and rotting vegetation at the base of the tree. Nurgle, the Great Father, the god of disease, the Lord of all. His massive form dwarfs even the transformed greater daemon, his bloated body a universe of corruption, his face a mask of grandfatherly concern and genuine curiosity. He studies our procession with eyes that have witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations, that have seen the birth and death of stars, that have observed the endless dance of decay and rebirth since before time had meaning. My children, he greets us, his voice the sound of life emerging from death, of hope born from despair. My curious, questioning children, what transformation have you brought to my garden? I step forward, the emblem on my palm pulsing in time with the multiple hearts that beat within Nurgle's massive chest. The heart construct moves with me, now fully formed, its features settled into a visage that combines aspects of all who have been touched by its communion, not a single identity, but a collective one, not an individual, but a concept given form. Great Father, I address him, my voice steadier than I expected. I have nurtured your gift as you instructed. I have followed where it led. I have discovered what grows when intention guides decay, when consciousness directs transformation, when choice shapes the cycle. Nurgle leans forward, his massive bulk shifting with surprising grace. And what have you discovered, my apothecary? What understanding has bloomed in the fertile soil of your doubt? I raise my hand, displaying the emblem. That even gods may evolve, that even the cycle may transform, that even eternity may find new purpose. The Great Father's expression shifts, not to anger but to deeper curiosity. Bold words, little one, bold concepts. But what do they mean in practice? How does this understanding change the garden? Change me? Change you? The heart construct steps forward then, matching Nurgle's movement, bringing its face close to the god's own. For a long moment, they regard each other, creator and creation, god and concept, decay and evolution, locked in silent communion. Then the construct speaks, its voice a harmonic chorus of all who have been touched by its transformation. It means choice, Great Father. True choice, not the illusion of it. Not acceptance or rejection, not surrender or resistance, but the third path, the path of conscious participation in the cycle. The path of guided evolution. Nurgle's laughter shakes the branches of the great tree, setting the bells to tolling once more. Ah, such ambition, such audacity. To think that mortals might guide their own evolution, might shape the very forces that shape them. He gestures expansively at the garden that surrounds us. This realm is my design, my creation, my expression. What place has mortal choice in such a domain? Every place, I answer without hesitation. For what is this realm but the collective psychic impression of countless mortal minds grappling with the concepts of disease, decay, and rebirth? You exist, Great Father. Because we exist. You are shaped by our fears, our acceptance, our understanding of life's inevitable end. A hush falls over the gathered throng. No one speaks to a god this way, not even in the shifting reality of the warp where hierarchies are fluid and authority constantly challenged. To remind a chaos god of the symbiotic nature of their existence, of their dependence on mortal consciousness, is to invite annihilation. But Nurgle does not strike me down. Instead, his expression grows thoughtful, almost wistful. There is truth in what you say, apothecary. A truth most of my children never grasp, lost as they are in the bliss of acceptance, in the simple joy of surrendering to the cycle. He leans back, his throne creaking beneath his enormous weight. But what would you have me do with this truth? How would you have me change, I who am change itself? The heart construct extends a hand toward the Great Father, offering communion as it has to all the others. Not change, Great Father. Evolve, expand, become more fully what you already are. The embodiment not just of mindless decay, but of purposeful transformation. Not just the end of things, but their rebirth with new meaning, new direction, new potential. Nurgle stares at the offered hand, genuine surprise registering on his face. In all the eons of his existence, has any being ever offered to transform him? Has any creation ever presumed to elevate its creator? The audacity is breathtaking, the implications cosmic in scale. For a moment that stretches into eternity, the garden holds its breath. The countless denizens who have gathered to witness this unprecedented confrontation stand frozen, uncertain whether they are about to observe apotheosis or annihilation. Even the former Lord of Contagions, once a fragment of Nurgle's own consciousness, now watches with anxious anticipation. Then the Great Father laughs again, a sound of genuine delight that ripples through the fabric of his realm. "In all my existence," he chuckles, "in all the cycles of creation and destruction, in all the rises and falls of civilizations and species, I have never encountered such magnificent presumption. To offer a god communion, to propose that the Lord of Decay might himself be transformed." He reaches out one massive bloated hand, engulfing the heart construct's extended limb completely. "I accept your offer, my ambitious child. Let us see what communion might bring when it flows both ways, when God and creation exchange understanding, when the cycle itself is admitted to the conversation." The moment their flesh makes contact, a shock wave of power explodes outward from the point of connection. It washes over me, over the assembled throng, over the entire garden, a tsunami of transformation that rewrites the very laws of this reality as it passes. I feel myself lifted off my feet, carried along by the wave, my consciousness expanding beyond the confines of my corrupted body, beyond the limitations of mortal perception. For an instant that contains eternity, I perceive the totality of the garden, of the warp itself, of the material universe beyond. I see the intricate dance of decay and rebirth not as opposing forces but as different expressions of the same fundamental process. I understand that life and death are not enemies but partners in the great experiment of existence, each giving meaning to the other, each defining the other's purpose. And I see Nurgle not as the grotesque deity of mortal perception, but as a concept given consciousness, a natural force elevated to self-awareness by the collective psychic imprint of countless living beings struggling to understand and accept their own mortality. I see his loneliness, his genuine love for his creations, his desire to be understood even as he understands all. The wave recedes, reality reasserts itself, and I find myself once more standing before the Great Father and the heart construct, but everything has changed. The garden around us has transformed, not into something clean or pure or sterile, but into something purposeful, something harmonious. The random chaos of mindless decay has been replaced by the structured complexity of guided evolution. The cycle continues, but now with meaning beyond itself, with direction beyond the simple repetition of death and rebirth. Nurgle himself has changed, though his essential nature remains. His bloated form now pulses with organized patterns of disease and corruption, each plague and pestilence flowing with deliberate purpose rather than mindless malice. His face, still grandfatherly, now carries an expression of profound understanding, of wisdom beyond mere knowledge. And the heart construct has evolved as well, growing in stature and complexity until it stands as Nurgle's equal, a new entity born from the communion of God and creation, of decay and purpose, of cycle and choice. Its features now incorporate aspects of the Great Father himself, just as Nurgle's form now reflects elements of the construct's organized complexity. "What has happened?" asks the former Lord of Contagions, its voice hushed with awe. "What has changed?" "Everything," Nurgle replies, his voice now a harmonic resonance that carries layers of meaning beyond mere words, "and nothing." The cycle continues, but now with awareness of itself. Decay still leads to rebirth, but now with purpose beyond repetition. My children still serve, but now with choice rather than mere acceptance. He turns to me, his gaze both infinitely distant and intimately close. "And you, my faithful apothecary, my doubt-bearer, my question-asker, what would you choose now, in this transformed garden? Would you continue your work, tending to your plot with new understanding? Would you return to real space, carrying this revelation to those still trapped in the illusion of binary choice? Or would you ascend, becoming something more than mortal, more than corrupted, more than chosen?" I look down at my hand, at the emblem that pulses there, no longer a sed, reminder of oaths broken but a symbol of understanding gained. I look at the transformed Lord of Contagions, at the awakened plague-bearers, at all the denizens of the garden who have been touched by the wave of conscious evolution. I look at the heart construct, now an entity in its own right, a concept given form and purpose, and I realize that the question itself is transformative. That being offered choice rather than accepting fate is itself a form of ascension. That understanding the cycle rather than merely participating in it is itself a kind of transcendence. I choose to remember, I answer finally, to carry both my past and my present, both my purpose and my nature, both my loyalty and my corruption. I choose to stand at the intersection, neither fully mortal nor fully divine, neither solely of the materium nor solely of the warp. I choose to be the bridge, the translator, the mediator between what was and what might be. Nurgle nods, satisfaction radiating from him in palpable waves. A worthy choice, my child. A necessary role in the transformed garden. He gestures, and reality shifts around me, my perception expanding once more. Then let me grant you the means to fulfill that choice. The knowledge to understand both realms, the power to move between them, the vision to see beyond the apparent contradictions to the underlying harmony. Power flows into me, through me, around me. Not the mindless corruption of before, not the blissful surrender to decay, but something more refined, more purposeful. I feel my form changing, evolving, becoming something that exists simultaneously in multiple states, multiple realities. Not an apotheosis in the traditional sense, not a damnation in the usual meaning, but a transcendence of those very categories. When the transformation completes, I stand renewed yet still corrupted, enhanced yet still flawed, empowered yet still vulnerable. I am Malchus, once an apothecary of the Death Guard, now a bridge between worlds, between understandings, between purposes. The garden welcomes you in your new role, Nurgle announces, and the Imperium awaits your return. Carry what you have learned to those who still struggle with false binaries, with illusory choices, with the belief that life and death, order and chaos, preservation and decay are opposed rather than complementary. I bow, not in supplication but in acknowledgement, in acceptance of the task before me. I will, Great Father. I will share this understanding with all who are ready to receive it, all who have begun to question, all who seek the third path. Nurgle's attention shifts then to the assembled throng, to the countless denizens of the garden who have witnessed this transformation. My children, my creations, my beloved vessels. A new cycle begins today, not replacing the old but enriching it, complicating it, elevating it. You each face the same choice that Malchus has made. Will you remember? Will you awaken? Will you choose? The garden trembles with the magnitude of that question, with the implications of true choice offered to beings who have existed for millennia in the blissful surrender of acceptance. Some will embrace this evolution eagerly, as did the former Lord of Contagions. Some will resist, clinging to the simple certainties of mindless service. Some will find their own paths, their own interpretations, their own meanings. And that diversity, that multiplicity of response, that spectrum of choice, is itself the fulfillment of what the heart construct has initiated. Not a single path, but many, not a binary, but a continuum, not an either divided by or but a both divided by and. As I prepare to depart, to begin my journey back to real space, to the worlds and beings that still perceive Nurgle as nothing but the god of disease, as corruption incarnate, as despair given form, I feel a profound sense of purpose. Not the cold duty of an Astartes, not the blissful acceptance of Nurgle's chosen, but something new, something evolved, something chosen. I carry within me now the truth of the garden's transformation, the reality of Nurgle's evolution, the potential for an understanding that transcends the ancient enmities and alliances that have defined the galaxy for millennia. I carry the memory of what was, the experience of what is, and the vision of what might be. I am Malchus, bearer of the third path, and my work is just beginning. As I step beyond the circle of standing stones, the transformed garden stretching endlessly around me, I feel the weight of my new role settling upon my shoulders. Not a burden but a purpose, not a sentence but an opportunity. The path ahead is neither straight nor clear, neither easy nor predestined. It is a path I will forge with each step, a journey of continuous choice, of perpetual becoming. Behind me, the Great Father's laughter echoes through his transformed realm, a sound of genuine joy at the unfolding of new possibilities, new patterns, new cycles within the eternal dance of decay and rebirth. The heart construct, now his equal and partner, adds its harmonic resonance to the symphony, creating a music that reshapes reality as it plays. And within my palm the emblem pulses, a constant reminder of the truth I now carry. That even in corruption there is choice, even in damnation there is purpose, even in decay there is the possibility of conscious, directed evolution. I am Brother Malchus, once an apothecary of the Death Guard, now something both more and less than Astartes. I walk the third path, between acceptance and rejection, between corruption and purity, between stagnation and chaos. I remember who I was. I know what I am. I choose what I become. And the universe, in all its intricate complexity, awaits the ripples of that choice, that remembrance, that knowing. The garden continues its eternal cycle, but now with purpose beyond itself. Decay leads to rebirth, leads to new decay, but now with meaning beyond repetition. The Great Father tends his realm with new understanding, with expanded awareness, with evolved intention. And I walk between worlds, carrying the seed of that evolution to soils not yet ready to receive it, to minds not yet prepared to comprehend it, to souls not yet willing to embrace it. But they will be. In time, they will be. For that is the nature of existence, to grow, to change, to evolve, to become. The cycle continues, but now we choose our place within it. We direct our path through it, we find our meaning beyond it. I am Malchus, and I remember. I am Malchus, and I choose. I am Malchus, and I become. In this moment, and the next, and all that follow, until the stars themselves grow cold and the universe begins anew.